Victorian London, an age of unprecedented progress and prosperity, symbolised by the grandeur of the British Empire. The city was a beacon of innovation, with advancements in industry, science and culture. The streets were bustling with activity, and the skyline was dotted with magnificent structures that showcased the empire's might. Yet beneath this glittering facade lay a darker reality. The opulence of the era masked the struggles of many who lived in the shadows, far removed from the splendour of the elite. London, a city of immense wealth and opportunity, was also a place of stark contrasts. The divide between the rich and the poor was glaring, with luxurious mansions standing in stark contrast to the squalid slums. While the upper classes revelled in luxury, attending grand balls and living in opulent homes, the city's underbelly seethed with poverty, crime and vice. The streets were filled with beggars, street urchins, and those struggling to survive. The Victorian era witnessed the rise of organised crime, with gangs casting long shadows over the cobbled streets. These criminal organisations thrived in the dark corners of the city, operating with a level of sophistication that often outpaced the efforts of law enforcement. These gangs, born out of desperation and fueled by a lack of opportunity, were a constant threat to the social order. They were composed of individuals who had been pushed to the margins of society, driven by the need to survive in a harsh and unforgiving environment. They operated in the labyrinthine alleyways and slums, preying on the weak and vulnerable. The narrow, winding streets provided the perfect cover for their illicit activities, making it difficult for authorities to track them down. From petty thieves to ruthless kingpins, these gangs reflected the harsh realities of life on the margins. Their activities ranged from pickpocketing and burglary to more violent crimes, painting a grim picture of the struggles faced by those living in poverty. Their stories, often shrouded in myth and legend, provide a glimpse into the darker side of Victorian society. These tales of crime and survival have become an integral part of London's history, offering a counter-narrative to the romanticised image of the era. By delving into the world of these criminal networks, we uncover a hidden history of London, one that challenges the romanticised image of the Victorian era. The efforts of detectives and law enforcement to combat these gangs reveal the complexities of maintaining order in a rapidly growing city. The stark contrast between the wealthy elite and the impoverished masses laid bare the inequalities that plagued Victorian society. The lavish parties and extravagant lifestyles of the rich were a world away from the daily struggles of the poor. This stark divide served as a breeding ground for crime, as desperation pushed many to the fringes of society. The lack of opportunities and the harsh living conditions drove people to take drastic measures, further entrenching the cycle of poverty and crime. The Industrial Revolution, while a period of remarkable technological advancement, also brought about significant social upheaval. The mass migration of people from rural areas to cities in search of work led to overcrowding, unemployment, and widespread poverty. London, at the heart of this industrial boom, witnessed an unprecedented influx of people seeking their fortunes. However, the reality for many was far from the promise of prosperity. The overcrowded slums became hotbeds of disease, crime, and despair. The lack of adequate housing, sanitation, and employment opportunities created a fertile ground for criminal activity to flourish. For many of London's poorest, joining a gang offered a way out of poverty, a chance to survive. These gangs provided a sense of belonging, protection, and most importantly, a means of income in a society that had marginalized them. The allure of quick money, coupled with the absence of viable alternatives, drew countless individuals into the clutches of organized crime. The Victorian era's strict moral code further ostracized those living in poverty. The criminal justice system, often harsh and unforgiving, offered little hope for redemption. This created a vicious cycle of poverty and crime, with generations trapped in a system that seemed designed to keep them down. The Victorian underworld was a complex and often brutal landscape, shrouded in mystery and danger. The streets, dimly lit by gas lamps, were a breeding ground for criminal activity where shadows concealed the nefarious deeds of those who operated outside the law. Different gangs controlled various territories and criminal enterprises, each with its own unique characteristics and modus operandi. These gangs were often deeply embedded in the communities they terrorized, making it difficult for law enforcement to root them out. Some gangs specialized in pickpocketing and petty theft, preying on unsuspecting pedestrians in crowded markets and thoroughfares. These skilled thieves could lift wallets and valuables with such finesse that their victims often didn't realize they had been robbed until it was too late. Others engaged in more organized crime such as smuggling, extortion, and protection rackets. Smugglers would bring in contraband under the cover of darkness, while extortionists would demand money from local businesses in exchange for protection from other criminals. Among the most infamous of these Victorian gangs were the 40 Elephants, an all-female gang that terrorized London's shopping districts. These women were masters of disguise and deception, using their charm and cunning to outwit store owners and law enforcement alike. And then there were the Peaky Blinders, a ruthless gang known for their signature style and violent methods, who operated in the industrial heartland of Birmingham. Their name came from the practice of sewing razor blades into the peaks of their caps, which they used as weapons in brutal street fights. These gangs, often romanticized in popular culture, offer a glimpse into the brutal realities of life on the wrong side of the law in Victorian England. Their stories are filled with violence, betrayal, and the constant struggle for power and survival. Their stories, passed down through generations, continue to fascinate and horrify, revealing the dark underbelly of a society grappling with rapid change and deep social divisions. The stark contrast between the opulence of the upper classes and the squalor of the working poor created a fertile ground for crime to flourish. The notoriety of these gangs spread far and wide, striking fear into the hearts of law-abiding citizens and capturing the imaginations of writers such as Charles Dickens and Arthur Conan Doyle. Their tales of crime and punishment were not just stories, but reflections of the societal issues of the time. Their exploits provided ample material for sensationalized newspaper reports and penny dreadfuls, further cementing their place in the public consciousness. These publications, with their lurid headlines and dramatic illustrations, fed the public's appetite for stories of crime and adventure, ensuring that the legends of these gangs would endure for generations to come. In the heart of London, a different breed of criminal enterprise was afoot. The 40 Elephants, an all-female gang, defied the conventional image of the Victorian criminal. Led by the infamous Alice Diamond, this formidable gang specialized in shoplifting and elaborate confidence tricks. Operating with cunning and precision, these women, dressed in their finest attire, would blend seamlessly into the bustling crowds of London's most exclusive shops. Their targets were the wealthy and unwary, relieved of their valuables with a sleight of hand and a charming smile. The 40 Elephants were a highly organized network with a strict hierarchy and code of conduct. Their loot, often luxurious fabrics, jewelry, and other easily concealable items, would be quickly fenced and distributed among the gang members. Their success lay in their ability to exploit the social norms of the time, using their perceived innocence as a weapon. Their exploits challenged the Victorian notion of female criminality, demonstrating that women too were capable of operating successful criminal enterprises. They became a thorn in the side of London's shopkeepers and a source of endless fascination for the public who devoured their daring escapades in the newspapers. While the 40 Elephants ruled London's shopping districts, a different kind of criminal empire was taking shape elsewhere. In the industrial heartland of Birmingham, a different breed of gang held sway, the Peaky Blinders. This city, with its bustling factories and crowded streets, became the perfect breeding ground for such a notorious group. This notorious gang, known for their distinctive style and brutal tactics, instilled fear in the city's streets and back alleys. Their sharp suits and flat caps became synonymous with danger and violence. The Peaky Blinders, named for their practice of sewing razor blades into the peaks of their caps, used these hidden weapons to gain the upper hand in street fights and intimidate their rivals. They were involved in a wide range of criminal activities, from illegal gambling and robbery to protection rackets and extortion. Their operations were meticulously planned, ensuring maximum profit with minimal risk. They operated with a ruthless efficiency, their network of informants and enforcers ensuring that their grip on the city remained unchallenged. Their violence was often swift and brutal, leaving a trail of blood and broken bodies in their wake. The mere mention of their name was enough to send shivers down the spines of Birmingham's residents. A stark reminder of the consequences of crossing them, the Peaky Blinders' reputation was built on fear and respect. Led by the charismatic but ruthless Billy Kimber, the Peaky Blinders were not just a gang, but a well-organized criminal enterprise. Kimber's leadership and vision propelled them to new heights of infamy. The Peaky Blinders rose to prominence during the late 19th century, their reign marking a particularly violent period in Birmingham's history. The city's law enforcement struggled to keep up with their cunning and brutality. Their reign marked a particularly violent period in Birmingham's history, with frequent clashes between rival gangs and the police. Their story, a potent blend of fact and fiction, has been immortalized in popular culture. The Peaky Blinders TV series has brought their tale to a global audience, blending historical events with dramatic storytelling, their iconic style and ruthless reputation serving as a chilling reminder of the dark side of industrial Britain. The show's success has reignited interest in this dark chapter of Birmingham's past. The Peaky Blinders' reign of terror reflected the lawlessness that pervaded many industrial cities during this period. Their sharp attire and menacing presence became symbols of the era's criminal underworld. The Peaky Blinders' reign of terror reflected the lawlessness that pervaded many industrial cities during this period. The rapid growth of these cities often outpaced the ability of law enforcement to maintain order. The rapid urbanization and social upheaval created an environment where gangs could thrive, exploiting the lack of resources and opportunities available to the working class. The Industrial Revolution brought both progress and chaos. Exploiting the lack of resources and opportunities available to the working class, the Peaky Blinders and other gangs found fertile ground for their criminal enterprises. The struggles of the working class provided a backdrop for their rise to power.